those beautiful spectacles. Millions of years ago, huge glaciers formed the lakes of Como and Lecco. Time moves at an artistic pace in these regions, with locals using the natural environment for entertainment. 35 miles to the south is Milano, with numerous examples of man-made spectacles of beauty. Outside this huge metropolis is the town of Monza. Just the name Monza warms the blood and chills the spine of every Grand Prix race fan worldwide. Ferrari is what most people have come to see and cheer. Michele Alboreto is the Italian favorite, carrying the flag of his country, while Austrian Gerhard Berger is the team's hard-charging point leader. All modes of transport are used to get to Monza. The rich and powerful have the luxury of helicopters. Departing from their five-star hotels, they are whisked across the countryside and arrive in comfort only moments later. An impromptu airfield in Monza handles as much traffic as many commercial airports. All this for the opportunity to view one of the world's greatest sports spectacles firsthand. Welcome to this ESPN coverage of the Italian Grand Prix.
The Italian man is noted for his love of, among other things, his mother, his children, his wife, and his car. And it was that Italian love of the automobile that led in 1922 to the construction of the Autodromo di Monza, on a beautifully forested park that was once the private preserve of King Victor Emmanuel. Over the years, the winners list at Monza is a who's who of speed, and all those great cars, they all raced here. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Economaki, standing at the foot of the 2.6-mile high-speed oval that was added right after World War II. It made Monza the fastest Grand Prix circuit in the world, but it was rough and it was dangerous. And after the 1961 race, the drivers refused to go on this track. And so now, the 59th Grand Prix of Italy will be held on the old flat circuit. And to tell us about that is the Monza veteran himself, my colleague David Hobbs.
Well, Chris, I did, in fact, win the last but one race ever to be held on this combined banked and road course here in 1968, winning 1,000 kilometers. That same year, I also lined up in the Grand Prix in a V12 Honda. And I'm sure that Hondas are going to make their presence felt very much in today's race. But there's also 11 Italians in this race, and the three hot shoes there are Patrese, Nannini, and Capelli. Nannini and Capelli particularly are going to really want to show their paces in front of the Italian crowd. And with an Italian director and Italian cameramen, I'm sure that if there is any action, we're going to see it. And with another Italian is with us today, and that is John Misignano, who's down in a very famous Italian car pits in pit lane. John?
Thank you very much, Dave. And of course, the #1 story down here in the Monza pits is a bit of a repetitive one. Team McLaren has secured the front row of this Italian Grand Prix. But there are 400,000 Italian spectators here waiting for one thing, for the red cars of Ferrari to do well. And they've really done as well as possible. The Austrian driver Gerhard Berger has secured the #3 spot here in Monza, and his teammate Michele Alboreto, the #1 driver in Italy, he is #4. We had the opportunity to ask two-time world champion Alain Prost just how he squeezes that last half second out of his fabulous McLaren chassis in pursuit of his teammate Ayrton Senna around this difficult Monza circuit.
It's a fantastic track, but the first two chicanes are not very good design, and especially because you can go over the curbs. And if you don't go over the curbs, you can lose maybe 1 second, 1.5 seconds per lap. So you're obliged to go over the curbs, as everybody does.
So stay with us as the ESPN coverage continues and the drama unrolls here in Monza, the story of the Italian Grand Prix, right after these short messages.
ESPN Speed World, Formula One coverage of the Grand Prix of Italy, is sponsored by BF Goodrich TAs and the new all-weather Comp TA, by Quaker State Motor Oil.
Welcome back to the Italian Grand Prix. We are right down on the Monza grid just moments before the start of this race. A huge story here is the fact that Eddie Cheever, the only American in this race, has secured 5th qualifying position, his best qualifying position in years. He is extremely pleased, and he hopes to end up in the points. Now, also, his teammate Derek Warwick is in 6th place just behind him. It's going to be one heck of a competition between those two drivers all throughout the event. Let's bring you up to date after the warm-up. The Ferrari cars, they're a little bit unsettled. Unfortunately, Alboretto's engine had a leak. They had to change that motor. That means this engine has only had one real lap on it. They hope everything in the installation and the motor is okay. Same with Gerhard Berger, a problem. He had a sticking throttle. And in Monza, that's one heck of a problem, especially going at some 200 miles an hour. Berger, they feel that the throttle is okay. They have totally disassembled the entire connection and have reassembled it. It is working okay at the moment. Nannini in the Benetton and Boutsen in the Benetton, both problems there. Boutsen, he blew the clutch out of his Benetton in the warm-up. They have changed it. Nannini has had gear selection problem in the warm-up. Lotus is okay, but they're just slow. They could not match their times in warm-up that they had in qualifying. The McLaren's perfect. No problems whatsoever. The Williams boys, they're concerned about the heat. We're up to about 85 degrees now. They had some heating problems earlier in the year. They only tested them, correcting them with temperatures under 87. So if it goes over the 87 mark, they could have overheating in those jet engines one more time. Chris, let everyone know what the qualifying grid is here in Monza.
150.909 miles an hour was fast enough to give Brazilian superstar Ayrton Senna his 10th pole position of the year, beating his own record of 9, which he shared with Niki Lauda, Ronnie Peterson, and Nelson Piquet. His Marlboro McLaren Honda teammate Alain Prost will start alongside, despite having spun out of the final qualifying session Saturday. The second row is made up of the Ferrari twins, Gerhard Berger of Austria and his Italian teammate Michele Alboretto. The third row saw the best qualifying effort of the year for the USF&G Arrows drivers, American Eddie Cheever and his British teammate Derek Warwick. In the fourth row, 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet has his Lotus Honda. He'll start alongside of Belgian Thierry Boutsen in a Benetton Ford, the fastest of the non-turbo cars. Then it's Alessandro Nannini in a Benetton Ford of Italy, and Riccardo Patrese, also of Italy, in a Williams Judd. In the sixth row, yet another Italian, Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House March Judd, and Japanese driver Satoru Nakajima in a Lotus Honda. Next is Mauricio Gugelmin of Brazil, Pierluigi Martini of Italy, Bernd Schneider of West Germany, Piercarlo Ginzani of Italy, Nicola Laurini of Italy, Andrea De Cesaris of Italy, Spaniard Luis Perez Sala, Frenchman Philippe Alliot, Italian Alex Caffi, Jean-Marie Schlesser of France, Philippe Streff of France, René Arnoux of France, Yannick Dalmas of France, and Jonathan Bailey of Great Britain. Failing to make the cut was Jonathan Palmer of Great Britain, Stefan Johansson of Sweden, Gabriele Tarquini of Italy, Stefano Mota of Italy, and Oscar Laraui of Argentina. Okay, now this park here is about 2,000 acres. That's 4 times the size of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The circuit has 13 turns and measures 3.604 miles to the lap. The cars will be going 51 laps today. David, how about a look at the Monza Autodromo?
Well, there we see a nice aerial shot of the... Behind it, of course, is the paddock, packed with transporters from all over Europe and equipment from all over the world. As you can see on this map of the circuit, it's relatively simple and relatively easy to drive, with some nice straights, with some very well-defined braking areas, so there's a lot of passing going to go on today, which we don't often see in some of these Grand Prix races. Let's join Ayrton Senna as he's on one of his very fast laps down the pit straight there at about 200 miles an hour in qualifying. Sweeps down this little right-hand swerve, which is of no real consequence to them, but this one is a second gear, left-right chicane, up and over the curves there, up to third, with a second left-right exit of this 2-part chicane. It's now going into the Curva Grande. This used to be a fantastic curve in the old days before they put that chicane there to slow the cars down on entry to that curve. He's now up to 6 speed again at about 160 miles an hour, brakes hard, down to second gear again, second, third, fourth. He's now approaching 2 of the most daunting curves in Grand Prix racing, the Lesmo curves. This is part 1, taken in third up to fourth here, and now probably into fifth, and he exits the second part of the Lesmo at about 155 miles an hour. Sweeps around the Seraglio, left-hander. Again, not much consequence. Down, a bit of a dip here. And in fact, that dip is there to go under the old banking. Now into the Curva del Vialone. This used to be a long left-hand curve, is now again another chicane, a left-right chicane, to slow them down on this long straight that you can see in front of them now. Up to 6 speed again. And the second fastest part of the course, round about 190, 195 miles an hour. Hard on the brakes here for the Curva Parabolica, down to third. Tight apex there, the corner starts off tight and gradually unwinds, so they accelerate up to the gears, third, fourth, into fifth here probably, and then back to sixth as he completes another lap, which of course put Ayrton Senna on the pole at over 150 miles an hour for his qualifying run.
Well, it's a great day here in sunny Italy. The clear skies, the temperature 85 and rising a little bit. A very slight 5-mile-an-hour wind coming up the main straightaway at the tail end of the car. 67% humidity, and the forecast sunny and warmer for today's Italian Grand Prix. Now, in the lake region, high in the mountains between Lakes Como and Lecco and the tiny village of Madonna del Gisalo, is a chapel built as a shrine to cyclists. Beside this chapel is a bronze statue depicting the victor and the fallen, dedicated to all who strive in competition. It brings to mind the battle being waged below these mountains here at the Autodromo de Monza, a battle for the World Driving Championship between Ayrton Senna of Brazil and his teammate Alain Prost of France. Stay tuned for the start of the Italian Grand Prix.
Here in the Monza pits, just starting out for Mr. Nannini, the Italian driver who wanted to do so well in this race. He is sitting in the pit lane just at the exit to the track. At the moment, Nannini is trying to get direction. It is a motor problem. In the beginning, he was worried about his gear linkage, but it is the engine at this time. They have the body covered off. We will keep you updated, Chris. But right now, Nannini is starting the Italian Grand Prix, going nowhere. Back to you, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, John. It's a tough break for an Italian driver. This is the place he has to excel. He must do well before this huge crowd of his hometown people. It's a tough break for Alessandro Nannini. Here, we're waiting now for the cars to take up their position. This is the last of the preliminary laps. The race will go for 51 laps on the 3.604-mile racetrack, and for most, this is the most important race of the year. Though Monte Carlo has the image of being a great Grand Prix, it is Monza that really tickles the fancy of the fan, doesn't it, David?
It certainly does tickle the fancy. It would be so desperate for Nannini if he doesn't make it today. He went very, very well in the warm-up this morning. He must be bitterly, bitterly disappointed if they line up. The lights will be turning to red any minute and then green.
Well, there's one big change here. Nigel Mansell's chicken pox is still bothering him, and he has not come. His position in his car is taken by French driver Jean-Louis Schlesser in his very first Grand Prix, despite the fact that he is said to be over 40 years old. His official age is shown at 36, but everybody sort of poo-poos this and say he is the oldest driver on the track. And there's a disappointed Sandro Nannini. Well, there's our field of 26 lined up with poleman Ayrton Senna nearest the white line and his teammate Alain Prost. Now remember, in Belgium it was Prost who got off to a better start and nosed ahead momentarily. Let's watch this all-important start with the lights go on over there. What's the light story, David?
Well, the lights, they wait till all those cars are stopped, which they have now done. The lights will go red, and then there's a wait for anything up to 10 seconds before we get the green.
And there they go, and the race is underway, and Prost again makes up the difference and sneaks ahead of his teammate Ayrton Senna for the second straight Grand Prix in succession. Prost, and look at Senna on the outside. How about that? Again, Senna does what he didn't. I can't understand that.
Well, it's very easy. He just braked a bit later. There's nothing hard to understand about that at all. He just went in a little bit deeper than his teammate Alain Prost. But everybody got through there. I'm surprised to see on that first lap.
Well, we've got the way they started, the two Marlboro McLarens up front, the two Ferraris third and fourth. And then let's see if the arrows... Okay, let's go back to the pits and John Bisignano.
Just very quickly, they are trying to get this engine cover. They are hectic trying to get Nannini back in the race. It looks like he will make the Italian Grand Prix right at the back of the grid. There are 14 different Zeus snaps that it takes to put this piece of bodywork on, and they're only up to about number 8. He'll be out of here in the next 4 or 6 seconds. Back to you, Chris.
Well, other pitmen there. Tough break, as we said, for Alessandro Nannini. Here we have Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, and the Ferrari twins. And one of the arrows has been... One of the arrows has fallen a good way back. Looked like Derek Warwick has lost some ground on that opening lap.
Yeah, the Ferrari's Berger was giving Alain Prost a very hard time, and obviously Berger would love to do very well here in front of an Italian crowd in his Ferrari, as would, of course, the crowd love him to do well, too.
Well, they're staying fairly close together. This, they say, is a power circuit, and that the non-turbos are really at a disadvantage here. But Terry Boutsen looks as though he's holding his end up pretty well.
Yes, which will make Nannini even more disappointed, because he and Boutsen were very, very evenly matched in practice. Now, look at the lead that Ayrton Senna's pulled out just on one lap on his teammate. There's no doubt about it that when it comes to starting a Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna reminds me of the late Jimmy Clark, who was also incredible on his starts and for the first 2 or 3 laps.
Here we see those curves, we saw them a moment ago, that the drivers are complaining about and talking about, and they say they have to run over the curbs in order to make fast lap times. It's tough on the suspension units. We did some checking before the race about does it knock the alignment out, and they say no, but only if it doesn't bend the front suspension units. And the question here is, can they stand this lap after lap going over these curves at these great speeds?
Well, of course, the thing is, too, at this stage of the race, when the cars are full of fuel, they weigh considerably more than they will towards the end of the race, so it's best to keep off the curbs. But I notice, in fact, everybody is driving just right over them. So everybody, I guess, is taking the chance to go fast, that they might break it. There we see the Lotus. That's the Lesmo curve, as I said earlier, one of the very fastest curves here.
Okay, Ayrton Senna, and that obviously is Sandro Nannini. Let's have another look at the start of the 59th Italian Grand Prix. There's the red light. When it goes green, that's the signal to let your clutch out. Now, Alain Prost is on the left. Senna is on the pole on the right. And Prost sizzles ahead there. The Ferrari's going. There you can see Terry Boutsen getting by Derek Warwick, followed by Nelson Piquet. Warwick goes off to a rather bad start. And here now, Senna pulls out and accelerates by. You see, David, it's before the braking area he got by him there.
Well, he just kept his foot in it just that little bit longer, and just gave it a little bit more.
Okay, and here we have Ayrton Senna about to get a lap or try and pass Sandro Nannini, who got off to a late start because of problems with that Ford-engine Benetton car. Nannini will be staying with that team for the 1989 season. A lot of changes announced here as far as engines and designers and so forth. And you can tell the car is pretty heavily loaded from the sparks it's kicking up.
Absolutely, but just look at the lead that Senna has pulled out on the rest of the field, including, of course, his teammate Alain Prost already. And that includes getting a lapped car between him and the rest of the field, which he'll be very happy about at this early stage, too.
It's sort of a cushion for him. Well, this is the way it's been in Formula One racing all this year. These Marlboro McLaren Hondas have been absolutely unbeatable. They're the finest Formula One cars of the decade out here now, and it looks like it's going to be the same old story with Ayrton Senna of Brazil if this car hangs together with a checkered flag waves here at Monza today. There's a nice overhead shot. See, you got the left wheel to the curb. They're just touching it there, and you think with this kind of a lead he could pass up hitting the curbs.
Well, I guess he wants to just totally demoralize the opposition by putting a huge lead, which certainly does work. I mean, as they see him disappear, you can bet your bottom dollar these other guys behind him are trying extremely hard. And if they see him just disappearing into the distance, it has a very demoralizing effect. There's one of the...
That's Nicola Larini in the Osella. It's a tough break. The first Italian driver in the race. There's quite a field here. The Italian drivers, there are 9 of them in the race. There's 6 French drivers. There are 3 Brazilian drivers, a pair of British drivers, and 1 each from Germany, Japan, Spain, Austria, the United States, and Belgium for their field of 26.
There we see Eddie Cheever, the American driver, in the US F&G Arrows, holding off Thierry Boutsen in the other Benetton. Thierry, of course, is going to move on next year and drive for Frank Williams in the Renault engine Williams car.
Well, you know, Cheever's under a lot of pressure here. He found out here this weekend that his ride may be, in a sense, sold out from under him. The story is that Honda, which is going to supply engines exclusively to Team McLaren next year, isn't going to turn its driver Satoru Nakajima loose, and Honda reportedly has offered to pay up to $2 million to the team that will give Nakajima a seat in its car, and it may be an Arrows, which would be too bad because Cheever's the only American driver on the circuit, and the Arrows are the only American-sponsored cars on the circuit.
Well, he's putting on a good show today, holding off Thierry Boutsen there. Thierry, of course, a normally aspirated Ford engine car. The Arrows is still turbocharged, but obviously won't be next next year. There we see the second camel car being pressed hard by Capelli. Gugelmin there with the coloured helmet, both in the light green Leighton House marches.
Well, with 3 laps into the Italian Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna is leading, Alain Prost is second, Gerhard Berger is third, Michele Alboreto is fourth, Eddie Cheever is fifth, Terry Boutsen is sixth, and Ricardo Patrese is seventh. We'll be back for more after these messages. It's a 4-second lead over Alain Prost. Ayrton Senna continues to lead the Italian Grand Prix. Senna won his 10th pole position for this event, and that's an all-time record. The 9 pole position holders over the years have been Niki Lauda, Ronnie Peterson, and Nelson Piquet. Lauda in 74 and 75, Peterson in 73, and Piquet in 84. 8 pole positions in one season went to James Hunt back in 1976 and Mario Andretti in 1978, Ayrton Senna in 86, and Nigel Mansell last year. 7 poles in one season were held by Jim Clark way back in 63, Mario Andretti in 1977, and Senna in 85. There's no question that Senna is racing's most significant qualifier these days.
Well, 3 out of the last 4 seasons, he's been in the top pole cylinder.
Well, David, let's see how you picked the finish here.
Well, my finish was Senna, Prost, Berger, Derek Warwick, Nannini, and Capelli. Well, obviously, we're on Nannini already. There's no chance of him being 5th, I wouldn't think.
Well, John Visignano voted for Senna over Gerhard Berger, Eddie Cheever, Michele Alboreto, Terry Boutsen, and Derek Warwick. Well, I think it's going to be an all-turbo finish today, and I think only one McLaren's going to finish. I've chosen Senna to win, with Berger 2nd, Alboreto 3rd, Piquet 4th, Warwick 5th, and Cheever 6th when it's all over today. That's our pick 6 choice here. And right now, we've had Luis Perez Sala, the Spaniard, go off to the side of the track a bit earlier when we're in commercial. Let's take a look at that as I'm trying to get back onto the race. Here it is earlier. There's Sala spinning the wrong way. How do you do that, David?
Yeah, well, he got his wheel hooked over that curb, you see, and he got it all hooked up, spun across the road, and looks like he's going to back into that guardrail fairly hard. There we see Senna through the trees here in this fantastic park. It really is a magnificent place as he goes through the Curva Grande at about 165 odd miles an hour. Nannini still hanging on. This gives you an idea of how well Nannini would have gone in this race, because Prost and Berger here still have yet to lap him.
Well, you said we were going to see a lot of Italians, David, because of the Italian director, the Italian producer. Now you're a British driver talking about your Italian favorite.
Yes, well, he was going to do a good job today, and he must be absolutely bitterly disappointed. I feel he would have maybe even got on the rostrum today.
Well, on the rostrum, of course, means in the top 3 where the leading 3 finishers stand up after the race to receive the accolades of the crowd, and the crowd is huge here today. It has a reputation of sometimes getting unruly towards the end of the race, particularly if an Italian driver, and more importantly, were a Ferrari to win. So in order to control that crowd, the management here has imported a team of dog handlers from France with ferocious-looking police dogs that have muzzles on their nose. They've been kept muzzled so far, but if the crowd should get unruly, we're told that these dogs would be turned loose against anybody who crosses the line. The officials say that do not go near the track when the race is over, because it's very dangerous. The crowd tends to surge out here, and they've taken steps to try and keep that from happening here today.
There's an interesting thing here that Ayrton Senna's lead has certainly leveled off, and in fact he's slipped back into the clutches of his teammate. He's only 2.5 seconds in front now, whereas he did have a lead just a few laps ago, 4 seconds, and still in front of his teammate is Nannini, driving extremely well. Berger right up there for the first of the Ferraris. Alboreto dropping back a bit.
Well, what's happened here is, right off the bat, Senna set the fastest lap of the race, a minute 31.4, but on the 6th lap, Prost turned a 1:31.016 for the fastest lap of the race so far. So Prost is actually going faster on the track than Senna right now, and he's being held up by Nannini.
He'll be getting wild now because he wants to get to his teammate. And of course, there was no doubt about it that Senna made a dynamic start and obviously held his breath just long enough to get him into that first chicane. Kept his foot in it longer, braked harder, whistled by his teammate. But now that the race is setting into rhythm, Prost is getting a bit between his teeth and is making back ground that he lost in that first lap.
Well, if this is the power palace they say it is, I'm wondering why that McLaren Honda just can't turn up the boost and whiz by Alessandro Nannini.
Well, I guess it's fuel. See, one of the things they've got to watch a little bit, the turbo cars with this very high sustained speed, 150 odd mile an hour average, the one thing they've got to be very careful of is their fuel. Tires here are no real problem.
Okay, there's
no long hard corners, but fuel could be a problem.
Well, there's Alain Prost having just gotten by the
at that famous, that's a great overtaking spot, that going into the parabolica. You approach it at a hell of a lick. I mean, you're doing about 100, these guys doing about 195. And there's Alberga using the slipstream of Nannini to advantage, giving himself just that little bit of extra and whipping out and passing him right in front of the grandstand. Obviously, I've no doubt the absolute extreme delight of the assembled throng.
And now, we've got a race going here, David. Gerhard Berger's 7th lap was in a minute 30.947 to give him the fastest lap honors of today's Grand Prix. We've had in 7 laps, we've had 3 different drivers take fastest lap honor.
Well, Berger has been going very well this year in the Ferrari. It just can't quite match those McLaren Hondas, but of course he did the fastest lap and got the lap record at Spa just 2 weeks ago. Even though Senna and Prost ran away with the race, Berger was the man who left up with the lap record. Using all the road there at the Lesmo curve, that is a very fast bit of track there. And as you can see, there's not an awful lot of runoff between the edge of the curve there and the guardrail.
You know what's really remarkable about this racetrack, David, is the fact that it was designed in 1922 with the speeds of the day. And to this day, the Autodromo di Monza is considered one of the finest Formula One tracks in the world, just as Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which was built in 1909, is looked upon as one of the finest tracks in the United States. And think how much the equipment has advanced and still does well on these old speed tracks.
Well, that's true. Of course, they have progressively slowed this one up. Who's that coming out of the pits? Is that... looks a bit like a Benetton. Anyway, we'll see it again in a minute, no doubt.
Well, we have another fastest lap as the event gets faster and faster. Ayrton Senna is back with the fastest lap honors on the 8th time around, a minute 30.753. So he is not poking by any stretch of the imagination.
Prost actually pulling away a little bit now from Berger, his immediate pursuer. And they both put a bit of daylight between themselves and Nannini now. Of course, the normally aspirated car having a bit of a job to hang on to those turbo cars here.
Well, Senna has pulled away to a 3.2-second lead over Alain Prost, and Berger's just, as you can see, a couple of car lengths behind. Alboreto is 4th in the Ferrari, Eddie Cheever is 5th in the Arrows, and Boutsen is 6th in the Benetton, the first of the non-turbo cars. Then it's Patrese, Piquet, Capelli, Warwick, Gugelman, Schneider, Nakajima, Martini, De Cesaris, Ginzani, Cathy, Streff, Schlesser, and Arnoux for the top 20.
There you saw those cars twitching there as they got into those. Some very, very, very heavy braking goes on here on this racetrack as he's coming down that long straight now into the parabolica, putting a lap on the Minardi, is that, I guess? The one that spun.
I think that's the De Cesaris and the Real. But Mr. Senna has just done it again. He's turned a 1:37.23 to improve on his fastest lap time on his 9th lap. So on the 8th lap, he turned his fastest lap, and on the 9th lap, he went even faster. On a hot day like this, David, does the track get faster?
Well, no, because these corners here aren't, you see, they're all these little tight jobs. Braking is such a very important part of the equation here. The Curva Grande, which they're just about to go into now, you accelerate all the way through there. It's not as if you arrive at a great speed. And so this is not a very hard track on tires. It is hard on brakes, and obviously there's a tremendous amount of braking and accelerating going on. And there's Prost just putting that Minardi away. That's number 24. That is...
Yeah, that was a minute 30.723 that Senna put up as the fastest of the day so far. And I'm sure they're going to see more of the same before this race is over. Look at this side-by-side going in the turn.
Yeah, Berger going around the outside of Sala there to the Lesmo curves. These used to be incredibly exciting because the Curva Grande was quicker and there was no chicane between the Curva Grande and the Lesmos. And they used to be very fast corners. There we see Senna putting a wheel over the curb at the Vialoni. Got to be a bit careful doing this curbing, but he's not really climbing all over the curves like he was earlier on.
Until chicanes became part and parcel of Formula One racing, Monza and Silverstone used to vie for the fastest of all Grand Prix circuits. But the addition of the mandatory slowdown areas has changed that. Silverstone right now is about 9 miles an hour faster in qualifying than Monza.
It's amazing how fast Monza is, considering it's got those 3 major chicanes, which are pretty detrimental to going fast.
Well, Mr. Prost is getting settled in here now in second place. On his 10th lap, he did a 1 minute 30.507 to get the fastest lap honors, and we've got fastest lap 10 times the fastest lap has changed hands now, or time of it has changed.
Gerhard Berger just getting a little bit out of shape as he accelerated out of that third gear chicane. The first set of chicanes is quite tricky, really, because the first two are very sharp and the second one's not so sharp. There we see the big Campari bridge as they come down to the chicane here.
Well,
before the left. Oh, there's one of the Lotuses.
Here we've got, looks like one of the Lotuses.
Piquet, I think, isn't it?
Nelson Piquet, the three-time world champion. Well, David, one of your picks has gone by the wayside, and now here's one of mine going by the wayside. And this sand and gravel here, look how deep Piquet's shoes go in the sand. That's delivered to slow the cars down. But he's had a tough season. For a man that has won 3 World Driving Championships, he's certainly had a lackluster year, but he'll be staying with Lotus next year, everyone tells me.
Well, that is the story. He's going to stay with Lotus. Lotus is going to use Judd engines next year, the V8 Judd, as is used in the Williams this year. Williams, of course, will be going from them to the Renault engine. So we'll see Piquet back in action again next year, supported again by Camel and Lotus. But his day today, I fear, is run. Once you're in those sand traps, you're in.
I would think so. Ayrton Senna leading Alain Prost, Gerhard Berger. And here we have a look at Nelson Piquet getting into the gravel. That's exactly where Alain Prost went off the track yesterday in practice and bogged his car down in the gravel there. It must be a tough approach.
Well, it is, because it's a very fast approach, about 109 in the race trim, about 195 miles an hour, and you break down to a very sharp second gear corner with not much to sort of look at. You know, you've got that flat, expansive stand to use as a measuring stick, so it does lead to the odd mistake. And of course, once you're in the sand, that's it.
It's a reference point there is tough. Okay, it's Senna, Prost, Berger, Alberto, Cheever, Boutsen, Patrese, Piquet, Capelli, and Warwick. We'll be back for more after these messages. On ESPN, immediately following the Italian Grand Prix today, the CART Road America 200 for Indy cars at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Road America, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and the Indy cars. Well, 3.774 seconds is the interval between leader Ayrton Senna of Brazil and his teammate Alain Prost of France, and Mr. Senna is starting to pull it away, open up a big gap as he has done. He won 7 races. The points, he's leading now. Only can use the best 11. There's now talk and speculation that Ayrton Senna may be the first man in racing history to have what is called a perfect score. Of the 11 races that he could count, he may just win them all.
That's right.
Okay, while we consider that, let's have a word from our colleague in the pits, John Bisignano.
Thank you very much. Behind me, Chris, is the Benetton team. They are very much let down with the failure on Nannini's engine. The problem was an electrical one. It was a computer chip that helps the fuel flow system, and it had shut down, and therefore no fuel whatsoever was getting to the engine. They changed it quickly. It does seem to be working all right now. David, my question is to you, what's it like to be out there with the front runners, David, with still a lap down?
Well, I can tell you, it is the most discouraging, disheartening, and generally sickening feeling in the world, A, to be in a race and not even make the start like that. That just gets the day off to a really lousy start. And then when you can hold on to the leaders and know that you would have been very competitive, it really is absolutely the most abject feeling of misery.
You know what I can't understand, David? There seems to be a constant fiddling with cars, not only in Formula One racing, but in all forms of racing. Now, they had a warm-up here just 20 minutes before the start of the race. Obviously, all cars got around the track okay. But then somebody picks up a screwdriver and fiddles with the car, and here's what happens. Well, the car won't start. Why isn't well enough left alone?
I don't know, Chris. But you're absolutely right. In racing, that he drives me to distraction. The times I've arrived back in my village in England and said, I was leading the race, and then what happened? Oh, well, the throttle cable broke. And everybody looks like you've gone completely mad. And they say, the throttle cable broke. The car cost $2 million. How can the throttle cable break? But I mean, they do. It's absolutely uncanny.
Well, you know, all the talk has been about Ayrton Senna of Brazil this year winning all these races, and he's a shoe-in for the championship. After the Brazilian round, the press said that Ayrton Senna conceded, Alain Prost conceded the title to Ayrton Senna. This was after the Belgian round, and we had a chance to talk to Alain Prost before the race and asked him if he, in fact, conceded the world championship to his teammate Ayrton Senna.
Yeah, I think what I said is this year I was a little bit lucky at the beginning of the season, I must say, And then I was very unlucky. I had many small problems because the car has good reliability, but and many problems. And Ayrton is very quick. And as soon as you have a problem on the car, it's 2 or 3 tenths, 4 tenths difference. And this kind of level, you can't afford it. So what I said is now it's 7 wins to 4. It's almost impossible to catch him because he's very good. He gets the same car. Every time I find something in the car, I just put the same on his car because the relation is very open. And I can't see the situation be reversed. To be honest, I don't lose my motivation. I still want to win each race I can. But I think he must be realistic. And Ayrton also deserves to be world champion at least once. And it can be maybe the best thing that can happen to me for the next season, because then maybe his motivation is going down a little bit.
Well, the best thing going to happen to him, he's an eternal optimist, and it looks like it's going to be 8-4 when this day is done, David.
Well, as you said, he's a realist too, and you can't fight City Hall, and Senna's got the bit between his teeth this year. Their cars are incredibly evenly matched. Senna's obviously prepared to take just a little bit more risk than Alain Prost, and it's paid off in a number of events. Look at this dice going on here. This is Patrese, Derek Warwick, and that's Yvon Capelli in the Leighton House March, who I was expecting to get in my top 6. These guys are really having a duke out there for really what is 7th spot. Patrese's lying in 7th, 8th, 9th.
Well, we haven't seen the fastest lap change since Alain Prost did it on lap 15. He turned a 1:29.925. On lap 15, Prost is trying to get Mr. Senna back in his sights. He is motivated, obviously, by the clock tells us that.
Capelli there trying to do a draft on Derek Warwick. Of course, Derek Warwick's got the Megatron engine, which is the turbocharged, and of course gives him a lot more power. John.
Okay, here's more from John Bisignano.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We have the only Japanese driver into the pits, Mr. Nakajima. He came in, they routinely changed the tires, but of course they are not expecting to have any tire changes here in Monza unless there is a problem with the tire. They are trying to get this Lotus bodywork off. It's the biggest piece of bodywork in all of Formula One, and they had some difficulty in getting it off. He shut down the engine, and they are looking at it. We have Honda people all over that motor. We'll get back to you with the exact situation when we know the mechanical problem. Back to you, gentlemen.
This is a tough break for the Lotus team and its sponsors, Camel. Nelson's PK's parked in the gravel pit, and I hear their only other car in the race is getting worked on, and there's no chance of either of the cars doing well after this. Some of these days, it's really tough. It's interesting that Lotus was such a dominant force in racing for so many years, and now having such a terrible season.
This is one of the tough races of the year, too. A lot of attrition, because while we were down there talking, we heard those sirens going, which meant that somebody else was coming in. There's that race for 7th, 8th, and 9th again. Warwick in the meet in the sandwich there. Capelli giving him a hard time. Warwick, in fact, has just passed Capelli. He passed him, in fact, just before we were watching him last time. Capelli, of course, loses out on this long drag here against the turbocharged Megatron engine of Derek Warwick. Derek, of course, desperately trying to get around Riccardo Patrese as they come into that first chicane.
Let's watch the curb bumping going on here. Left side, right side. These chassis are really taking a beating here today.
Very much so. Now, at that particular point right there, Derek will be at his weakest. He will have a little bit of throttle lag coming off that corner. The normally aspirated engine of Patrese in the Williams car, the lead here, getting away just that little bit quicker. But then, of course, as they come to the end of these long straights, the extra power of the turbocharged Megatron will have told again. But just right there, he'll just lose out a little bit. You see him drop back on that initial acceleration, and that's because of the turbo lag that they have. They're saying, Derek was saying the turbo lag's better today than it's been any other time this year. They've moved the pop-up valve. You see what that little tiny error cost him there? I mean, Capelli all over him now like a cheap suit on that one little curb hopping exercise. Just losing. You've only got to lose a fraction, and he's right there.
Well, you know, the stopwatches today are calibrated in thousandths of a second, and that's why. Well, the car in front, Riccardo Patrese's Williams, and the
Now he's got a real good draft.
V8 jet, and there goes Capelli trying to get that Benetton, that March by him, but the turbo takes on here, right?
Yes, exactly. Now Capelli, you saw him, that aerial shot going through that last bit of that chicane, was much quicker than Derek Warwick through there, and really maximised on that, ran right under the wing of the arrows, but just couldn't quite capitalize it on the end of the straight.
Before the race, we were talking to Derek Warwick, and we asked him why the Arrows cars are better now than they've been before.
Yes, I can. I mean, all the development that we've been doing all year, what we have here should have been ready 4 or 5 races ago. We had a few hiccups. We've changed the turbo and the compressor, and what it's really done is it's given us more power. The engine is more efficient now because we have less back pressure, and to complement that, we've also come here with a new front suspension setup, just slightly different, nearer to what you will be seeing on the new USF&G Arrows. So all in all, car's good. I'm happy, you know, very confident, sitting back. Looked at the monitor a couple of times, P1, I thought, this is the life.
Well, he seems to be quite pleased. I guess Capelli filling up his mirror there motivated him a little bit more there, Dave.
Well, he certainly is. Capelli is dynamite through that Lesmo curve, and he's also very quick through here. You watch him pick up ground as they exit that corner, right up with that, and pulls out and passes him. But, of course, right at the end of the straight, he's going to be very hard to maintain that because that turbocharged car right at the end.
Okay, let's now, after this side-by-side turn, Capelli fails to make the bid. Let's go to John Bisignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. Lotus is out of this Italian Grand Prix. A very disheartening thing. Quickly, they changed all the spark plugs. They changed the black box. They started the engine twice, and it was still as sick as ever. The driver got out of the car. Nakajima got out of the car. He said, "I've had enough, boys." They could not find the real problem. They went through the electrical system. It's something worse than that. Back to you.
Well, the Lotuses are out of it now with Piquet in the gravel, and one of the LaRousse Calmel's car we saw fleetingly in the pits there. Senna has now increased his lead over Alain Prost to 3.7 seconds on the 19th lap of this competition. Berger is still third, 6.5 seconds behind Prost. Alboreto, the second Ferrari driver, is fourth. Cheever still holds fifth. Boutsen is sixth. Warwick is seventh. Capelli is eighth. Or Capelli is ninth. And Mauricio Gugelmin, the Brazilian, is 10th. That's the standings now. More after these messages. Seasons took 8 straight. The Williams team took 6 in 1987. So if Honda McLaren wins today, it'll be 12 in a row. They'll be 2 short of the record held by Ferrari here in Italy.
Well, there's an awful lot of records going to fall today. Senna, of course, is going to bag them all. And if the season goes on like this, if he wins just a couple more races, he's going to be awfully hard to catch the all-time amount of wins in the season. Derek Warwick has got around Riccardo Patrese. So Derek must be now in 7th spot. And Capelli's going around Patrese as well. Trying to.
Hey, we got some
Patrese. Now, we saw these two, if you remember, having an incredible duke out just 2 weeks ago at Spa when Capelli put that outside pass on Patrese, and Patrese was very gentlemanly about it and finally had to concede the corner. But it was a great pass.
It'll be interesting to see how Patrese drives today with the job security he now has. The story is he's going to stay with the Williams team for next season. When we were in Belgium, it looked as though he might not. This is the time of the year when drivers make up their minds about where they're going to go and whether they're wanted or not wanted. Now, Mr. Senna's pace, he's 4.5 seconds ahead of Prost right now. We're in the 22nd lap of a 51-lap race, and Senna has lapped half the field. Everybody from 13th on down has been lapped.
Well, Senna's going to want to make all those records he can this year as we see him coming into the Vialoni there. Prost, his teammate, just going under the old banking. He's going to want to make hay while the sun shines this year, because next year when they go to the normally aspirated Honda V10 in the McLaren, they won't have the advantage they've got this year. I still think they're going to be tough, but I can't see them having the advantage they've got this year.
Last night, Crichton Brown, the general manager of Team McLaren, ventured the opinion that next year, with the turbos gone away, that the racing's going to be a lot louder than it is this year with the normally aspirated engines in use.
Well, Alfa Romeo were here with a demonstration car on Thursday afternoon, which also had a V10, and the noise as this car went down pit straight was absolutely astronomical. So if you've got 26 of those little turkeys out there, it is going to be a noisy scene and a great year for earplug manufacturers.
Well, next year, two of the engines we have on the track today, the Ford V8 that's in the Benettons and a lot of the other cars, and the Jet V8, they'll be back where the formula goes to no turbos. But available to constructors now is a new engine, a flat 12, with the Subaru of Japan name on it, actually designed by Carlo Citti and built by Motori Moderni of Italy. Now, no one's chosen that engine yet. Honda has a V10 for next year, as does Renault. And look at this. The Lamborghini V12 is going to be in the Rousse Calmel's car, and of course Ferrari will have a V12, and Yamaha has a V8 that the Zaxby team is going to use. So the engine situation next year is really interesting, and there may be more to come in this list of we've just read off.
And there we see a lot of action there as Berger gets amongst the lap traffic, putting some time around Philip Streff in this dark blue car here. And here's the two leaders on their serene way going to the Parabolica. There's a great view of the Parabolica.
Oh, isn't it?
Obviously, which shows you why it's got the name it's got, the Parabolica.
There's the old bank track alongside, but I was here in 1957 and 1958 when the Indy cars raced on the banks. There was events they still talk about. The speed was monumental. In fact, it was so great in the south turn, the one the cars are leaving now, that it shook the underpinnings of the bank track. That particular turn was on stilts, whereas the other turn is cut into the ground.
Now look at, I don't think that Alan Prost uses that curb just quite as much as his teammate Senna.
Well, that's interesting. Senna, Prost, Berger, Alboreto, Cheever, Boots at work, Patrese, Capelli, and Gugelmin in the top 10 with the 24th lap of this 51-lap race. We'll be back for more of the Italian Grand Prix.
Italian crowd in this grandstand that also dates back a fair old way with that rather boat-like looking bridge effort at the top there.
That room, that glass room up there is a great story I like to tell. Back in 1957 when we came over here, the Indy drivers were upset with the times that were being announced. And I was sent over to check on the timing. And in that room was a huge round table piled high with fruit, cheese, and wine. And all of these, they look like Italian bankers, were sitting there. And each of them had a glass of wine in front of them and a stopwatch. And they were the timers. It was great.
Well, here we see the guys that they were timing. And that there's Alboreto. And that's right behind him is one of the Benettons. Both Benettons, in fact.
And we've got a closely grouped series of cars there.
The front car there is Philip Streff, who's obviously about to be lapped by 27, which is Alboreto there, who's fallen rather behind his teammate. He's 24 seconds behind the leader now, Alboreto, so he's not doing too well in front of his home crowd. Right behind him is Thierry Boutsen in the first of the, well, the only competitive at the moment, Benetton, much to, of course, Alessandro Nannini's disgust.
Here's traffic, and Boutsen is unable to close on Cheever, who's in 5th place. That'll give Cheever some points that he's looking for.
That was Alio and Schlesser there. Schlesser, of course, driving for Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell's with him. And, of course, Alio driving his regular LaRousse Calmel.
Well, Alain Prost apparently got a clear lap in because he is now owner of the fastest lap of the race at 1 minute 29.810 seconds. He did that on his 25th tour of the Autodromo di Monza here in Italy. That engine in Prost's car, the Honda V6, will only be in one team next year, the McLaren team. They have an exclusive on it. This year it was in both the Lotus and the Honda team cars.
Of course, it won't be the V6 next year. It'll be the normally aspirated V10, and the V6 that's in his car now will be in some museum somewhere, probably in the Honda Museum in Tokyo. We gave you the top 10 just before but I want to give you the next 10 because the guy who's running 11th is Bernd Schneider, who's driving the Zaxby in one of his, well, it must be his best race of the year. He's running a good 11th behind Gugelmin. Behind him is De Chesvis in the Real, 12th, 13th Dallas Cache, 14th Philip Streff, 15th Schlesser, 16th Nannini, 17th Philippe Alliot, 19th Ginzani in the other Zaxby, 19th is René Arnoux in the Ligier, the lone Ligier, 20th is Julian Bailey in the Tyrrell, and that's the only cars that are left running. Both Lotus Camels are out. And of course, we've seen Nannini, of course, has dropped right down, but he's now running in 16th spot.
It's a beautiful day here in Monza, Italy, not far from the industrial city of Milan. There's Andrea De Cesaris in for a tire change, and that's rather surprising because the story going in was that tires would not be a problem.
So I think it's probably another problem, like maybe when Nakajima came in. There's one of the Zaxby cars. Probably Bernd Schneider, because I was just saying how well he was going. This is usually the kiss of death when I say how good someone's going. He stopped about 2 minutes later.
Well, here, Alain Prost has just done it again. He's improved on his fastest lap time of a lap or so ago. He's now done a 1:29.674, but he still is 3.17 seconds behind Senna, and that's
very significant because he was 4.7. So his fastest laps are paying a big dividend in as much as that Senna is not so far responding to them.
Now, let me ask you something, David. Are the people in the McLaren pit telling Senna that Prost is closing?
Yeah, because he'll have on his board, it'll just be the usual plus or minus. It'll have plus 3.7 or plus 3.1, so he'll be able to read every lap by it. And, of course, most of these cars also have radio contact as well. There we see that is, in fact, Schneider is about to be put a lap down by, that's Alain Prost, of course, just going by him. Schneider going extremely well today, and this, of course, is swan song for that Zaxby turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and next year they're going to use, as you've already said, the new V8 Yamaha engine.
You know who's doing well out there, despite his bad start, is Alessandro Nannini, because there's only one car in front of him on the same lap with him, and that's Bernd Schneider. So Nannini has passed, well, exactly 14 cars since the race started.
Yeah, he's up to 12th spot.
And Prost has done it again. He's put another fastest lap on the board, 1:29.642.
And is only 2.6 seconds behind teammate Ayrton Senna.
But the fastest lap of the race has been changed 12 times since the green light went on. I've never seen one that has improved in speed so much as this one has, David.
Well, I'll tell you what I'd like to see, too. I'd like to see a World Championship point for pole, and I'd also like to see a World Championship point for fastest lap of the race, because I think they are significant milestones in any race, and it's a shame that people do these things. They get lap records and this, and it means absolutely nothing to them except it goes in the record book. I think they should get a point for that, really.
Well, they used to years ago. Right. The fast lap of the race, you did get a point. You also got a point if you qualified the fastest. Those points are important. They're not given out in big numbers. The winner gets only 9 points. It's 9, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Only the top 6 finish in points. And speaking of points, let's go down to John Bizignano about American Eddie Cheever's quest for points.
Of course, Eddie Cheever definitely wants to score points. He said earlier, or you said earlier, Chris, that Eddie Cheever is not assured of his drive in the Arrows team, where his teammate Derek Warwick has definitely been signed. Now, Mr. Cheever could be in a bit of problem. We talked to the Goodyear International Motorsports manager, Lee Gogg, and he informed us that there's only one car out there currently having tire problems, and unfortunately, it's American Eddie Cheever. The fastest way to set the car up also caused extra heating on the inside of the rear tires to get the grip coming out of those chicanes. His teammate is having no tire problems. There are no expected tire changes all the way up and down this pit road. The man in tire trouble at the moment, American Eddie Cheever. Back to you.
Oh, thank you, John. That's interesting that only one car would have tire problems here. Goodyear does such a great job servicing the racing industry. But I guess style and car setup does dictate how much or how little the tire will wear on a car.
Yeah, and of course, car setup is the crucial thing. I tried to find out from McLaren before this race started if there was any difference between the cars of Senna and Prost, and they didn't seem to know, or they would tell me. Because last week, 2 weeks ago at Belgium, you expressed surprise at the way that Senna pulled away. Well, it turned out there had been a bit of a setup change in the two cars, and Senna had more downforce. Prost had taken downforce off because he was worried about fuel consumption, and of course, in the end, Senna just pulled away from him on that high downforce circuit in the Ardennes. And I was wondering if there were any changes today. I don't know. No one would tell me.
Well, of course, that's the case. So one driver likes his car one way, and another driver likes his car the other way, and that's the difference in the setup.
Look at the way Alain Prost goes around there and doesn't even run over the curb.
Maybe he's got it figured out. We talked with Ayrton Senna before the race about the records that he's been setting this year and wondering if they're on his mind.
Of course, I know what's going on, but what is important to me is the championship. If you get the championship, anything else that comes is a bonus. But the vital thing is the championship.
Well, He doesn't know what's going on, and he is going on because he now holds the fastest lap at 1:29.569, done on his 29th lap of this 51-lap race.
And we saw Bernd Schneider in the pits, and that looks like Andrea de Cesaris also back in the pits. So de Cesaris' race is effectively run, as is Schneider's. We don't know what Schneider stopped for, but he was there just a moment ago in the pits. So that's the end of a very fine run.
Well, Mr. Prost is now only 2.6 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. Now, that's about half the interval that it was a few laps ago, and Mr. Prost is starting his late race drive. Indianapolis car mechanic George Bignotti has always said over the years that the Formula One driver has something that he saves for late in the race, something you don't see too much in America, and Alan Prost is showing us that right now.
Well, he certainly is, but now he seems to have slipped back a bit again in that picture. We're still showing him on the thing as 2.9 seconds behind.
Okay, let's get out of the pits and John Bizignano.
Just very quickly, Mr. Prost, he has set 2-lap records, but I'll tell you, the last time he came by us, that engine sounded terribly. And just at that time, Mr. Ron Dennis, the managing director of McLaren team, ran out, and the boys are set up here in the McLaren pit for a pit stop. So be ready to throw it back here if Mr. Prost has to visit these pits. Back to you.
Thank you, John. Well, that's interesting. They've got those tire warmers there. This is such a sophisticated sport, and it's high-tech in every respect. 2.984 is the time in seconds between Senna and Prost, and we certainly hope that Alain Prost does not have to make a stop. There he is right there making that right-hander, and we'll have to see if he decides to call it the pits. It's a 6-sounding engine. You know, on my pick 6, I didn't mention Prost, figuring that these McLarens cannot keep finishing 2 cars at every race, and I almost feel sorry that I didn't put him on my pick now.
He looks like he's running a bit off the pace to me there. The tyres, from what we can see, look all right, but he's obviously not up to speed. So he must have got some sort of engine problem. There we see Ayrton Senna going around the parabolic. As he comes out the Vialoni, that's a long way behind. That's about 3/4 of a mile. And as you can see him coming down towards the parabolic here slowly. So he's going to come in and see you, John, just in a very, very few seconds.
Well, here we have 30 laps. They're working on the 31st lap, and the positions are exactly the way they started. Senna, Prost, Berger, Alberto, Cheever, and Ward.
Well, no. Senna stays, Prost stays out. But he's way off the pace.
There's 20 laps remaining in the competition. And now I see the interval is 9 seconds, so he is slowing way down. 9 seconds. Berger is 24 seconds behind Prost, and if it had a second a lap, why Prost would hold on to second position if he can keep that kind of an lap. Okay, with Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost running 1 and 2, Berger and Alboreto 3rd and 4th. We'll be back for more of the Italian Grand Prix after this. Is focused on Gerhard Berger's Ferrari, and all the Italians in the Autodromo de Monza are watching this car as he closes on second place Alain Prost, whose number 11 Marlboro McLaren Honda is having trouble of one sort or another. Here comes the Austrian speed kid Gerhard Berger in sight now. He's got his car aimed right at the back of the number 11 Marlboro McLaren. They should be in the same shot next time around, and the Italian fans will go crazy here. This is really an emotional crowd. There's the Ferrari way at the top of the screen, drawing a bead on Alain Prost.
Gerhard Berger, of course, the favorite with the Italians because he's done so well in this Ferrari in the last 2 years when they've had a relatively mediocre type of 2-year period. Of course, he won the last 2 races of last year in Japan and Adelaide. No wins this year. He was on the pole at Silverstone, and of course, if he hadn't been on the pole at Silverstone, Ayrton Senna would now have 10 poles in a row. I mean, he's got 10 as it is, but he'd have 10 in a row.
Well, Berger now is only 10 seconds behind Prost. He was 24 just a short while ago.
Now that time is really whittling down as they come into that long back straight. You can hear Prost's engine when he goes past here. It sounds pretty rough, but he must be considering that whatever it is going to last till the end of the race, and he's obviously considered it's just not worth coming in to have it fixed.
Well, of course, the diagnosis. See, it's interesting now. Fixing something really involves changing something in most cases on these cars. There's so many electronic controls onto the board or the chip or whatever it is just taken out and a new one replaced it.
But of course, to take all the bodywork off, find the right chip, there's about 100 chips in there, find the right chip and all this sort of thing, I guess he's just figuring it's too time consuming, and with the lead he had, he's probably better to just stay out there.
Okay, now here's going to be the pass for second place. Is Berger going to wait for the right place, or is he going to pass him as soon as he gets there?
Well, with the power advantage he's got at the moment, he'd probably just whistle by. Right about here. Although it's difficult to tell the long lens, obviously not about here. He'll probably now wait till they come out of the Lesmo, and in fact he might just try and sneak by before they get there.
And for second place in the Italian Grand Prix, Gerhard Berger of Austria moves into the 6-point range ahead of Alain Prost. And you know, aside from Ayrton Senna, whoopsie daisy here. Look at lightning striking our announce booth here.
Ron Dennis looking a bit sick there. All the McLaren guys looking pretty sick about the gills as their driver slips to third spot. This, of course, is the sort of thing that the Italian tifosi are praying for, that the same sort of problems should now befall Ayrton Senna, and their boy will come through. Look at the crowd waving there on the right hand of the picture under that adjip sign.
See the flags there on the right of the
crowd
screen.
absolutely going berserk here. Thierry Boutsen now making ground on Gerhard Berger as well. Is that Thierry Boutsen? Couldn't be. You can hear the crowd, actually hear them in his booth.
Prost is heading for the pits. There are the Ferrari banners, and it looked like number 11 car. Yes, Alain Prost is... And let's go now to John Bizignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. The grandstand is on its feet for one reason, Mr. Berger in second place, but Mr. Prost has come into the pits. They were trying to identify the exact problem through the telemetry going from the car to the pits. The Espen computers, the Honda boys, the computer managers, they were all under a great discussion with Ron Dennis. They left him out there until they were able to more closely pinpoint the problem. What's coming out, all the spark plugs, black box off, new tires on, and Mr. Prost is wiping his windscreen. But still, we don't know if they got enough information to absolutely go directly to the problem. As you said, David, there are many problems that could cause such a misfire. We thought possibly exhaust, but the computers came back with electronics, and that even makes it more complicated due to the many variables that could make the same amount of noise. Same problem. We'll keep a close look out here and give you the exact information when we have it. But Mr. Prost, I'm looking directly into his eyes. Second place in Monza is now history for the little Frenchman. Back to you.
Well, that's a tough break for Alain Prost. And this ices the World Championship, I would think, for Ayrton Senna this year. And speaking of world champions, in 1961, an American, Phil Hill, came over here to drive for the Ferrari team. And right here at Monza, when he won the Italian Grand Prix that year, he clinched the World Driving Championship. Phil, an old friend, has just joined us in the announce booth. Phil, welcome to the ESPN announce booth. You having a good time?
Having a wonderful time, Chris. Thanks a million. What about you?
Oh, can't complain. What are you doing these days, Phil?
I'm restoring antique cars in Santa Monica.
And what brings you to the Italian Grand Prix?
Oh, I'm here with a group of 30 Americans that are here to look at the race.
Okay, Phil, you're a Formula One expert. The sport has changed so much in the 25 years you've been out. What do you see as the most significant change?
Well, about the most obvious change is loads and loads of more money than there used to be in my day.
And I guess when you were really amateurs, were you paid well at all, Phil, for driving back in 61?
Well, you know as well as I do, you have to define what's well paid. We certainly weren't well paid by today's standards.
Years ago, they used to talk about a trophy and a hearty handshake for a winning driver.
Well, we had a little more than that. I think I made around $100,000 or something a year I won the championship.
Well, that for 1961, that isn't David Cobb just had a heart attack over here.
Can't make 100,000 now.
Yeah, I see. Well, that's good. What about the cars in your eyes?
Well, of course, the cars are enormously different. Much more powerful, incredible grip that we never even dreamt of before. Just things are different in many, many ways.
Phil, in your day, was it fun being on the Formula One circuit, or was it work, 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 as it seems to be now?
By today's standards, it was a heck of a lot of fun. We didn't think it was as much fun as it is in retrospect.
You said when we spoke earlier that you wouldn't trade it. You'd prefer to have it the old way.
Well, maybe that's a common thing for people from another period to say, but that's the way I feel. I've heard it from a lot of people.
Well, here we have Alain Prost getting out of the car. What do you think of today's drivers, Phil, compared with the drivers of your era?
Well, of course, they're weeded out of a much larger pool. They're probably of a higher order of skill than we were, just because of that, if nothing else.
But what about the cars compared to the cars you drove? I think in your day, the driver had more to do, really, in the success of winning a race than he does today. The car seems to be everything today.
The car is a much larger percentage of the whole picture. In my day, we were able to do much more about something being wrong, and in era previous to mine, even more so.
Well, that's interesting. Our statistician, Dan Knudsen, just advises me that this will mark only the 4th time this year that a McLaren car has not finished the Grand Prix as Alain Prost gets out of that number 11 McLaren. A tough break for Alain Prost. Have you been watching this battle, Phil,
yes,
for the
I
World
have.
Championship? Have you ever seen, you weren't with Ferrari when it was a dominant car, but nothing has been as dominant as these McLarens.
I can't imagine in an era like this, where the technology is of such a high order, that any one team could get this kind of an advantage in one season.
With so much electronics and high tech going into the car, do you think that a driver, you had to be a pretty good mechanic in your day? Look at this here on the track. David, what are we seeing here?
I think that's Nannini in the Benetton, who disappointingly didn't start the race. Yes, it is Nannini, trying to get around Gerhard Berger, who's currently lying in 2nd spot. So Nannini is desperately trying to get at least 1 lap back. He's only 1 lap down now. He's up to 10th spot. He's trying to get that lap back from Gerhard Berger, who's running a pretty strong 2nd. This would be making Nannini's day even more desperate than it is already, because he's duking it out now with the guy who's lying 2nd, and he's a lap down because of that awful disaster at the start when it wouldn't start. He must be absolutely beside himself.
He's
now
going to be the darling of the Italian fans if he can do that. I'll tell you that. Getting back to you, Phil, yeah?
Up in the stands where I was just sitting, he already is the darling of the Italian fans.
Really? What's it like, Phil, watching from the stands? You're never a fan. When your car broke, you used to go home.
I would like to be home with Derek and Vanessa, my kids in Santa Monica, watching on television right now, to tell you the truth, because we see a lot more than we do on the front straight here today.
Well, that's true. Well, Phil, thanks very much for coming by and chatting with us for a few minutes. We appreciate it. Good luck with your guests. Let's go down now to the pits and John Bisignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. We have found out through secret messages into the computer room exactly what took Alain Prost out of the Italian Grand Prix. Number 1 cylinder went dead. They aren't sure if it's a collapsed piston or dropped valves. But what they were trying to do with the spark plugs in the black box will not fix that much of a injury inside that number 1 cylinder, gone forever here in Monza. Back to you, gentlemen.
Well, it's
there's Nannini, made the pass on Berger going into the first chicane. It'll be interesting to see now if he can in fact pull away from Berger, just to fill his cup of unhappiness to complete overflowing.
Well, Berger's 25.5 seconds behind Senna, and he's obviously concerned about fuel. He's got 10 seconds on Alboreto. So I think maybe at this point in the race, with after 39 laps, a dozen laps remaining in the competition, Mr. Berger wants to hold this position and make sure he has enough fuel in the tank of that number 28 car to take the checkered flag.
Well, he certainly knows he's not going to win it, so I obviously decided to settle for 2nd place, unless, of course, he may have some sort of problem with his car, either with the tires or with the engine. There's a heck of a race going on, which we're not seeing, of course, for 4th, 5th, and 6th. Derek Warwick is, in fact, wound in Eddie Cheever and is only 3 seconds behind his teammate. 3 seconds behind him is Capelli, and 4 seconds behind him is Boutsen. So those guys are all very closely bunched for 4th, 5th, and 6th, 7th spot.
Well, we've really had a different Formula One race here in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza this year, with Ayrton Senna leading Gerhard Berger and Michele Alboreto. We'll be back for more in 1.
This Sunday afternoon is quite familiar from last week. Danny Sullivan is there again. What about this racetrack? Is this to your liking, or what's going on with you?
Well, I think Elkhart Rake's really to everybody's liking. It's a great track. It's fast. It's got some slow corners, very smooth, good places to overtake, and we just had the car working. This is, of course, the 6th this season for us, so we're looking for a win now.
Danny, it is a terrific points race. It really is. And I'll tell you, look at your performance since Milwaukee. It's been a great year. I bet you wish you could do the first 2 races over.
Well, I do, but we had, you know, I can't really complain about them. We had a good run at Long Beach, had an engine failure, and then Indy was going well, and we had a mechanical, and you just can't do anything about that. But we just have to worry about these last 3 and 4 and see if we can't clinch this title.
Danny, nice bright skies today. We had rain last week in Mid-Ohio. Had it not been for the rain, would you have had a better chance?
Well, I think so. It was just unfortunate, the second lap incident with Little Al, that it took us out. I think even if we hadn't had that, we were just biding our time at that stage, waiting for it to dry, because you could see the sky in the background that it was going to clear up, and we didn't want to take any chances. But you know, things didn't work out that way. We had to do a comeback race, and I was glad to get the 5th place points.
Well, Danny and his teammate Rick Mears are on the pole, and also standing by with us is the owner of the team that fields both of those cars, Roger Penske. And these are supposed to be good oval race cars, but they seem to do okay on the road courses too.
Well, Larry, when you think about it, this weekend is the first time that we've had the front 2 cars on a road race, I think, since Danny and Rick have been together. So we've made some real advancements on the road racing setup. Danny went to Memphis last week and tested to try to develop a better car. And I can tell you, with the competition of Ray Hall and Al Jr., no one is counting on anything other than trying to win this championship. So the cars are good, there's no question. The Chevrolet engine has been fantastic. I know there's a lot of controversy about who has the Chevys, but the interesting thing is, where were all these people when we were sitting there dropping out of races, you know, a year ago? But the car is great, and I can tell you that both Danny and Rick are doing a fabulous job, and it's the best season we've had for a long time.
The best season the Penske team has had, and this is a very classic race course. Indeed, this man standing here on your left has run here, Roger Penske himself, at Road America here at Elkhart Lake.
Danny Sullivan's teammate Rick Mears will start alongside him in row number 1. This is the 4th time this year that the Penske cars have started on the front row. 3:30 this afternoon, live coverage of the 12th stop on the PPG IndyCar World Series for 1988, the Briggs & Stratton 200 from Elkhart Lake. We hope you'll be with us.
Technical Report is brought to you by USF&G Financial Services, asset management tools for a brave new world.
When carbon fiber made its debut into Formula One, they knew it was light, they knew it was strong, but one thing they didn't know was how easily it could be repaired at the circuit. Now here's a bit of the under tray from the USF&G Aeros team, and as you can see, they've hit a curb and damaged this little bit of carbon fiber right here. Now, they have found that carbon fiber is something that can be repaired at a circuit quite easily. The repair process starts with filling the hole with some very strong structural resin. After the hole is completely filled, several layers of the all-magical carbon fiber are put over the damaged area. This is to recreate the original form and to give the all-important strength. Final process, out comes the all-American hair dryer. The heat gun, it actually binds everything together. The structural resin and the carbon fiber are now literally melted into one piece. After some tender, loving polishing and touching up, it actually looks good as new. Carbon fiber, one of its greatest advantages is the fact that it can be repaired at the circuit. This repair has saved a week's worth of original construction and thousands of dollars.
Quite interesting, and it looks like what my granddaughter Alexis was doing with some paste and paper in school the other day.
It is interesting, and this is even more interesting. Here's Michele Alboreto, another darling of the Italian crowd, right on top of his teammate Berger. Berger obviously is in some sort of trouble because the gap has come down to what you can see on the screen now after Nannini went past Berger, and Berger is gradually slipping back into the clutches of his teammate Alboreto.
You know, it's interesting, David, the pace of last year's Italian Grand Prix when the turbo boost was at 4 bars or 4 atmospheres. It's 2.5 this year. There seem to be fewer mechanical problems than there are now. Obviously, Berger, with Alboreto closing, has got problems of one sort or another. And yet the cars are going slower.
Yeah, I think these Ferraris do seem to use quite a bit of fuel still. He's mentioned it to us 2 or 3 times when we've been interviewing that fuel's been a problem. It sounds all right when it goes by here, but we don't know, of course.
There's 9 laps to go. We'll see if he can hold off Michele Alboreto. Alboreto really is a man with a mission. He has no ride for next year. Ferrari is releasing him, and the one ride he thought he had disappeared between the Belgian and Italian Grand Prix races. So Michele Alboreto right here in number 27, unless something comes up in the next few weeks, will be a pedestrian during next year's Formula One season.
Well, two men with a mission here. That's Alboreto and, of course, Eddie Cheever. As you said earlier on, Warwick has re-signed with USF&G, the Arrows team. Cheever has not signed, and there is strong rumors that he won't be, and that Nakajima, the Japanese driver, is going to be bought into that team for a fairly substantial sum of money. A bit tough on an American team not having the only American driver in Formula One.
Well, when the reported salaries being paid top drivers in Formula One, $5 million a year, retainer, win, lose, or draw, you can understand why sitting out a season can look very expensive.
It's hell on the mortgage.
Tough.
Yeah.
All right, here's Michele Alboreto, number 27 Ferrari, swinging wide on the turn and bearing down now on his teammate Gerhard Berger, who is equidistant behind Alessandro Nannini.
Well, now we're about to see this duke-out between the two factory Ferraris. There's little or no chance of seeing the duke-out between Cheever, Warwick, Capelli and Boutsen, which we were, in fact, just about to look at when we went to the last commercial break. Those three guys are all strung out about 2 seconds apart, having a pretty good race of it, down in 4th, 5th and 6th spot. But these two guys are obviously going to get all the attention for the rest of this race.
Well, Nannini's up to 10th place, and his next mark would be Mauricio Gugelmin of Brazil, who lies 9th, who's about 10 seconds ahead of him on the racetrack, and he may just do that in the remaining laps.
This race, of course, is always one of the shorter races of the year. It's only 51 laps, which makes it about 183 miles, but run at such a high average speed, very close to 150 miles an hour, that the whole thing is soon over, and it's unbelievable to think we've already had 42 laps of a 51-lap race.
The field has been cut in half. 13 cars have been retired, and 13 are still on the track. 26 cars took the flag. So Mr. Senna now has a 21-second lead over Berger, who in turn is only 4 seconds ahead of Alboreto,
who in turn is 17 seconds in front of Cheever. There you see the cars bouncing down that parabolica. Some pretty heavy old braking goes on there. Of course, these cars have all got carbon fiber discs now, which were developed for aeroplanes. And Alboreto's now turned in the fastest lap of the race.
We said he was a man with a mission. He's getting his Italian up.
Left it too late. Silly twerp.
To the 129's 357. On the 43rd lap of the race, and there he is jumping the curbs.
Now he's really got the gun. Yeah, he's got the bee in the old bonnet now, and he can see Berger, who of course has been a tremendous thorn in his side ever since he joined the team. Obviously Berger joined as the very definite underdog. Alboreto was absolutely established as the #1 driver, and Berger consistently has blown him into the weeds, and of course had those 2 great wins last year in Japan and Australia, which has rather unsettled Alboreto.
Okay, David, are these drivers really palsy-walsy? We'll talk about that after we come back from this commercial message from the Italian Grand Prix at the Autodromo di Monza in northern Italy. On the track, Ayrton Senna, Brazil leads by 11.2 seconds over Gerhard Berger, who is being pressured by his teammate Michele Alboreto in 3rd. The Arrows twins, Eddie Cheever of the United States and Derek Warwick of England, are 4th and 5th. Terry Boutsen of Belgium Ivan Capelli of Italy is 6th. Terry Boutsen of Belgium is 7th. Italy's Riccardo Patrese is 8th. Mauricio Gugelmin of Brazil is 9th. Alessandro Nannini of Italy 10th. Jean-Marie Schlesser of France is 11th. René Arnoux of France is 12th, and Jonathan Bailey of Britain is 13th, and they're the only men on the racetrack at the moment.
They are indeed, and of course you can see how these 2 Ferrari boys absolutely blew by Nannini like he was tied to the ground. Obviously Berger's got the message that his teammates catching him up. He was hoping to have a nice cruise to the finish, a nice safe 2nd spot. He's obviously turned the wick up because Alboreto on the last lap scored yet another fastest lap of the race and has left it at 129.07 seconds, which is pretty well getting on with the program at race speed.
You know what? Short of a win, David, the thing a Formula One driver wants most of all is to, quote, get on the rostrum. That means finish 2nd or 3rd. Eddie Cheever's best finish so far this year was a 6th in Mexico, and he's lying 4th now, but he's 23 seconds behind Michele Alboreto. It doesn't look like Eddie will make the rostrum, but he's giving it all today, and right now Derek Warwick is just about 2 seconds behind him. So Mr. Cheever is having a tough day.
Well, unless, of course, either of these Ferraris run into a problem. I mean, there must have been a reason for Berger to have slowed up quite so much, and now he's obviously not slowed up. He's speeded up dramatically. which may, of course, hurry up the demise of whatever was wrong with his car before.
Well,
Who
maybe
knows?
he's just conserving fuel, and perhaps he conserved enough, you know, and has enough to get to the tree. Okie doke. John Bisognano's down in the Arrows pits. John?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We are in the Arrows pits, and we've seen a lot of victory celebrations out on McLaren boys, but there's no one going to be jumping higher than these mechanics after this Italian Grand Prix if things stay as they are. We talked to the team management out there underneath the umbrella. They said there are no rules between these two gentlemen. They can race as long as they remain gentlemen. And it's been mentioned many times that Eddie Cheever has not been signed for 1989, and his teammate has. Eddie Cheever is not going to let Derek Warwick by. That was the last thing he's told me before the start of this Grand Prix of Monza. Back to you.
Well, Derek Warwick is 1.2 seconds behind E. Cheever, Eduardo, as they call him, so he's not very far behind.
Well, there's 5 laps for Warwick.
And the Ferrari, Berger, with this onslaught from Alboreto, Berger has closed the gap dramatically to Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna went out of the picture there, and Berger was right in the picture. There we see Berger coming off the parabolica as Senna crosses the stripe. So the gap now between first and second is down to a mere 6.1 seconds with just 5 laps remaining, 4 laps remaining.
Well, this is really something now with Berger coming, being pressured by Alboreto, and Senna giving up a big lead. As you say, David, it's down to 6 and a fraction seconds after an hour and 11 minutes of running. And we may see dramatic things happen here. We've talked all year long about fuel problems. They really haven't manifested themselves this year. Maybe today's the day.
Well, I don't want to be here. If the Ferraris win this race, I want to be as far away from this Royal Park as possible, because the hell will break loose.
The dogs we spoke of earlier would get a workout if that's the case. This crowd will go absolutely berserk. You know, this park here is a beautiful park. It's huge. It's 4 times the size of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway grounds, and there's people all over it.
There's a lot of people here today. There's an estimated crowd. Some people put the estimates as high as 400,000 people over the weekend of the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is a huge, huge crowd by anyone's standard. There's the 2 USF&G cars. That's Eddie Cheever still leading Derek Warwick, and as you can see, that gap is certainly not 1.1 seconds. It is 0 seconds. He is right there, and these guys are having a desperate race for 4th spot, which would be worth some good points.
That's right. They'll both be on the rostrum, or they'll both be in the points. Remember, 9, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. The top 6 finishers get points, and right now Cheever is 4th and Warwick is 5th.
And of course, a great deal at store here for Eddie Cheever to beat his teammate who's already signed for next year. They're braking to the Vialoni. You can see those cars weaving under the brakes. Very hard braking here in 2 or 3 spots. Very hard braking. Oh, and there's Ayrton Senna's spot.
How about that? Here we have the development of developments in Formula One racing for 1988.
Oh, my God, the Ferrari's lying 1st and 2nd.
Out of the race, it looks like. He wants to get pushed start. He's not finished. The car's on top of the curb. The wheels are not on the ground. They can't get him off.
Senna got pressured there. This is that first chicane pass.
Look at the crowd.
Going
Gerhard Berger, Ferraris 1 and 2 here in the Italian Grand Prix as we come to the close of this race. What a dramatic development.
So that puts these 2 Arrows cars up to 3rd and 4th, which is another aside. But I think that Senna, we're bound to see a replay, but I think Senna got pushed out there when he was trying to lap a back marker. There was a lot of other cars in there, and I'm sure that's what happened to him. He tried to rush around the front of a back marker and got himself.
There is the disgruntled and disconcerted Brazilian driver Ayrton Senna, who will be the world champion this year, but he's out of the points now, out of the car and out of the race, and Ferraris are 1 and 2 in Monza. Let's take another look, and here's Senna coming in. David?
The guy in front of him, you see, is locked up and starts to close the gap on him, and that guy in front of him, I hate to say, is Jean-Louis Schlesser, isn't it? It's one of the Williams. It's unlikely to be Patrese. So that will be making Senna incredibly irate.
Well, this is Jean-Marie Schlesser's 2 Formula One races, his first and his last.
I should say so. Before, I'm not absolutely sure that was Schlesser, but I've got to think it was. There we see Gugelmin in the other march, and here, coming up to put a lap on him, is Gerhard Berger in the leading Ferrari, followed closely by Alboreto. His teammate. I don't believe it.
We talked about what would it take to beat McLaren Honda teammates, and who might it be, and who better than the Ferrari teammates here in Monza, Italy. But It ain't over yet. The fat lady has not sung yet.
It ain't over until it's over, and they got to put some. You got to put a lap now on Gujamin. But I tell you what, Berger is really got the bit between his teeth there. We say Ayrton Senna walking dejectedly back to the pits. Not very far to walk, but a long, long walk today for Ayrton Senna.
And you can imagine what Michele Alboreto is thinking about. We talked to Eddie Cheever earlier about what it's like to race Jean-Louis Schlesser, the man who just put Ayrton Senna out of the race.
My mother always told me if you can't say anything good about somebody, don't say anything at all.
It's all about Jean-Louis Schlesser. You may never hear his name mentioned again.
In Formula One circles, although in sports car you will, because he's currently leading the World Championship, driving his Mercedes engine Sauber, as Gerhard Berger comes to pull a lap on Gujamin, who's not giving up that track, so he might slow Berger through this long parabolica, which of course will give Alboreto just a bit more chance. It can't be very far to go now.
And this is going to be the closest Formula One finish in history, it looks like. There, the first and second place cars are just a few feet apart.
There they are.
And it's done. It's over. It's over. Gerhard Berger has won the Italian Grand Prix. Michele Alboreto is second, and the Italian racing red Ferraris from nearby Maranello, whose matter Enzo Ferrari passed on just a month or so ago. There's our flagman waving the checkered flag. What heavy drama, what great theater here. A tough break for Ayrton Senna of Brazil. It'll be interesting to watch the confrontation between Mr. Senna and Mr. Jean-Louis Schlesser of France when they finally meet face to face.
Well, what a fantastic victory for the two Ferrari boys. Of course, Eddie Cheever, who's an American but has lived all his life really in Italy, comes third, so that's great for him. Warwick is fourth, and of course fifth now will be Ivan Capelli, another Italian. So a very, very good day for the Italians here. Not a good day for the Williams team, and not a good day for Senna. But I suppose if I had won 10 poles in the season and was on the way to winning the championship with ease, I suppose one less result's not the end of the absolute world.
Well, there's somebody that had it picked right on that side.
And here we see it again. This is one of those cases you couldn't really blame Senna for this in any way, shape or form. Schlesser got totally out of control into that corner, shot across the apex there, and just didn't leave Senna any room at all. Senna at that stage was too committed to stop and get out of the way.
What was Capelli thinking about right there?
Well, that's, yeah, quite. He was thinking, I hope these guys don't spin into me and take me out.
That's Marco Piccinini, the Ferrari team manager, who has announced his retirement as team manager at the conclusion of the season. A lot of things happening in the Ferrari team here with since Enzo Ferrari has died. Fiat has bought the remaining shares. It's now 90% owned by Fiat and 10% by Ferrari's son Pier Lotto Ferrari. Well, what a day, David Hobbs. I can't remember being more excited in Formula One racing all years I have in this one. We sort of felt it earlier, and
look at March.
Yeah, now they're going to. I just hope they don't turn the dogs loose. I wonder how many people are going to be able to get out on the track here. These are officials welcoming the winning drivers, David.
Well, it is well fenced in here. Now we see the remains of Senna's car, totally undamaged, really. But
there they are on the track. The Tifosi, the famous Italian fans. They want to get a piece of it. Now there may not be anything left of any cars that are left out on the race.
Look, they're letting them over from the other side of the road there through the gate, and these guys will be rushing to get their $1 million racing cars hidden away from this crowd, because otherwise they'd be picked clean in seconds. Literally.
They're the buzzards of Formula One here, the Tifosi, the Italian fans, and they have every reason to be excited here with Ferrari winning 1 and 2 in the 1988 Grand Prix of Italy. We'll have a look at the points in a few minutes here. It's going to be Ayrton Senna still in the lead by a wide margin and on his way to a world championship, but that record of a perfect record and all those things are out the window now with the luck of the draw turning against Ayrton Senna of Brazil when he was hit by Jean-Louis Schlesser.
So close to the end of the race, too. Very, very disappointing.
All right, if our cameraman can find John Bisignan on the pits, let's go, John.
We are about to go. We're going to get out of here. The Tifosi, they're coming at us from both corners. I wanted to point out that this is the cleanest pit, the fastest pit in Formula One. All the mechanics, all the tires, all the tools, they're gone. They're history, and so are we. Good luck, camera crew. I hope you make it back. Goodbye from the pits. John Bisignano, back to the booth. Adios, guys.
Well, I don't like a man that won't stick by his guns. I mean, he should be down there reporting the action. That's what he's there for goodness sake.
Ashamed of the guardrail right there.
Made to stick it out. We ought to have a crowd scene now. We want to see him in the middle of the crowd there, interviewing a couple of them.
I just wonder what
that's Eddie Cheever's helmet there.
Somebody's got a nice souvenir.
Either stolen it or he's trying to work his way to the back of the pits. But, the Italians certainly do love their racing, and of course they love Ferrari best of all, as those flags there say. And there's going to be a lot of good time in the old town tonight.
Okay, and here's the fans at the Autodromo di Monza celebrating the 1-2 Ferrari victory in the 1988 Grand Prix. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Here, and look at that crowd outside the victory podium there. Gerhard Berger of Austria has scored his first victory of the year, finishing the 51 laps in 1 hour, 17 minutes, 39.744 seconds, and the crowd cheers him as he walks to the podium. Michele Alboreto, second, 0.502 seconds behind, just a little more than half a second back. In third place, Eddie Cheever of the United States, 35 seconds behind, and in fourth place, Derek Warwick of Great Britain. Then in fifth position is Ivan Capelli of Italy, and in sixth place, Terry Boutsen of Belgium. They are the men who earned the points today. Behind them in the standings, Riccardo Patrese of Italy, Mauricio Gugelmin of Brazil, Alessandro Nannini of Italy, Ayrton Senna of Brazil is given 10th place. 11th is Jean-Marie Schlescher, his nemesis. 12th is Jonathan Bailey of Great Britain, and 13th and last among those running is René Arnoux of France. Now, look at the crowd here on the straightaway at the Autodromo di Monza. We said they'd go there if there was a reason, and believe me, today there's a reason. They're the red-coated men, the Berger in the middle, Alberto left, an American Eddie Cheever in the white uniform, certainly a happy man. His first ever visit to a Formula One podium. Congratulations, Eddie.
Well, of course, that puts the management now in a bit of a quandary, doesn't it? How do you get rid of a guy who just came third, beat your signed driver by only a half a second? So that must have been a pretty exciting finish for Eddie Cheever and Derek Warwick there as they came down to the line. Eddie Cheever looking pretty hot and tired. Berger feeling no doubt absolutely on top of the world.
Look at this crowd going crazy. Now, after 12 races with 4 to go, Ayrton Senna of Brazil leads the Formula One points with 75 tallies. Alain Prost continues in second with 72 points. In third place, it's Gerhard Berger with 37 points. In fourth place, it's Michele Alboreto with 22. Then it's Terry Boutsen with 21. Nelson Piquet at 16. Derek Warwick next with 12. Alessandro Nannini with 9. Ivan Capelli with 8. Nigel Mansell with 6. And then Mauricio Gugelmin and Eddie Cheever with 5. Well, David, think about the World Championship. There's only 3 points separating Senna and Prost, and if Senna has bad luck later on...
Well, of course, this is the sort of thing that can happen. Now, don't forget, out of the 16 races, you only get points from 11 of those races. So after today, both these drivers are going to have to start dropping points. And they're even now, in fact, because now... Prost has not finished twice, and in fact, Senna has not finished 3 times. So that actually works in Senna's favor as they go on from now, because when he has to drop points, he's already got 3 races where he scored no points at all, and he's already got a 3-point lead. So it all augurs well for Senna towards the World Championship. Now, if he drops out of a couple more, and Senna and Prost was to win them, of course, the whole picture would change yet again.
Right. On September 25th, we'll be bringing you the Portuguese Grand Prix from Estoril, and then we go on to Spain for the Spanish Grand Prix a week later. And then it's across the Pacific to the Japanese Grand Prix at the Suzuka circuit. And finally, to close out the season, halfway around the world, the Antipodes, Adelaide, Australia, for the concluding round of the 1988 World Driving Championship on ESPN. And they're the men who have made the headlines today. Gerhard Berger, the tall, rangy Austrian. And on his right, Michele Alboreto, the man who doesn't have a ride. And on the right is Eddie Cheever. 2 men up there with no rides for next year, perhaps. And that's it right now from the Autodromo di Monza. Stay tuned. We'll be back.